S10E27. That's all we need.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Tigers Down Under. I'm with Mike today. How are you, Mike?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Bit of a daunting game coming up tomorrow morning for City, which we will talk about a little bit later. And of course, to take our minds off it, we can talk about the wonderful success that was the Cardiff game last week. So we'll talk Plymouth. We'll talk. We've got Bristol City this weekend as well. That's probably, understandably less on the agenda or less of a focus for City supporters than the big one against Plymouth. But we'll start with that Cardiff game last week, which, we were doing so well recently with our away games. I think I said on the episode last week with Dan, all the signs sort of pointed in our favour. We had a great record against Cardiff. We played well away from home. They had less rest than we did, I think. All sorts of things that were kind of going in our favour. So, of course, we would conspire to completely throw away the opportunity, as we seem to do every time the opportunity presents itself this season.
It's something that we're very good at. I think every time we have a discussion around all signs point to us winning, we most likely lose 1-0. And I have to stop being surprised. I think the only thing that surprised me was just the way we played. It just felt like a very different team. It almost felt like there wasn't much commitment, or the players had thought, we were going to win, and then just kind of came out just really slow, and I felt like we never really got into the game.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you can put your finger on, or if there's anything that you can think of that sort of suggests or explains the change in attitude, because I just find it so strange that we can go away to Sheffield United and Sunderland and look so good and look so comfortable against those teams, where I don't think Sunderland had a real shot on target till quite late in that game, to playing as we did against Cardiff, where it's like you say, it's as if the players have gone out and the attitude just isn't there. The motivation, where you think even coming into the second half at 0-0, you'd think sitting there at halftime in the change rooms, the players are looking around going, what are we doing? Like, this seems here to be got at, and we're not doing it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I was just looking at the stats then. Like, we didn't have a shot in the first half, or we had 2 blocked shots, but we only had 1 shot on target for the whole game, which is not like us these recent weeks. And I think it's definitely been a talking point for us on the changes from Walter to now, is that, we've just been attacking more and taking those shots. And look, maybe Matazo getting injured very early has kind of took that, and I guess, aggression away. I thought he's been pretty good since he's kind of broken into the 11, which is really sad to see. And then, I don't know. I thought the introduction of Lincoln was pretty. I think Lincoln started. Lincoln, I thought was great.
Okay.
But I don't know. I can't put my finger on it.
Yeah, I think Matazo going down injured is a really good one. Ironically, not ironically, I don't know. Like, he changed his boots just before the injury, so I don't know if one led to the other, but you'd almost think in that situation where a player goes down with an ACL where they've planted their foot, you kind of think, is it because they've got the wrong boot studs in? But the fact that he's changed his boots right before it happens shows that he was quite conscious he might have been slipping too much, and then he's almost overcorrected and obviously planted his foot, which it's just, look, I'm sure people will have their opinions on whether it's the training ground, whether it's something that we're doing in particular, but at least my perspective on ACLs in particular is a lot of the time it really is just bad luck, and it's, to have 3 ACL injuries in the it feels like in general.
I was about to say we've had a lot of bad luck then this season.
Yeah, but it feels like ACLs in football in general seem to be on the rise, and I don't quite know what it is. I mean, I know Rodri, for example, for Man City, you go, well, they play a lot of games, but I think I haven't seen a full list, but I'm sure that there's quite a few players. Like, I think like Jesus for Arsenal going down as well.
Yeah.
It does seem like there's quite a few.
Yeah, and I think, we've spoken about it in terms of, is Dorse pushing us too hard? Are we not training hard enough? Are we doing? I think there's just a lot that we don't know about going going on behind the scenes. That being said, I don't think we can necessarily blame the club for something like an ACL. If there were consistent muscle strains and then that's different.
Like hamstrings or something. Yeah.
Yeah, that's different. That's clear overtraining or not preparation. But an ACL just takes a slip or a misstep. I don't think the club's to blame. I think what's unfortunate is that we keep losing players that we're excited about.
Yeah.
Like Balumi and Miller were the first ones to go, and now Matazo, and Hughes was out for a while. I just don't think it's been a really hard season, and I think we say it every year is that injuries just get the better of us.
Mate, you can go back to like Snodgrass doing his knee or Odebajo doing it. It's always the players that you're most excited about, and it's just
Snoddy's a good one.
Yeah. Ryan Mason. It's like these freak accidents just seem to keep happening. Emmanuel, even with his heart, was it his heart? I don't know. He had some sort of medical issues.
Yeah.
It's just it's crazy. What was I going to say though? And it's not even like it's always at our home ground or anything like that. So it's not as if you can blame the pitch or anything like that. It does just seem like a freak. But I mean, to your point about Matazo going off, Slater then came on. Seemed as if Alzate wasn't up to starting this one. He had a bit of a knock. So yeah, to your point, maybe it was like an issue with the energy levels. But that's where I kind of go at halftime. Surely the players sit down and kind of go, what are we doing? And then we concede pretty soon after halftime, as we seem to do quite often now. And it's a pretty sloppy goal. You kind of look at it as the foul from Slater that leads to the free kick. Panda then palming it away for a corner. But even then, we deal with the corner. It goes out, gets recycled, and then they score from a deflection. It's just a mess of a goal. Yeah,
and I think it sums up all the signs pointed to us winning, and it had to be something very, for lack of a better term, dodgy and lucky to beat us.
Well, look, my votes for this game, I'll go to the votes because player that I wanted to talk about got the 3 votes to me. It was actually Kamara, who I know is absolutely your favorite player. I know you've got his name on the back of your shirt. I thought he came on and he was just about the only one actually to show some attacking intent. And there was a few times he broke up the field. There is definitely something about him where I'm like, he seems like he should be quicker than he is. Like, he's very casual, but even so, he was able to beat his man, get the ball into the box on a couple of occasions. I think Pedro had one chance sort of off the back of his efforts, and then Jones's criminal header, like he should have done better with it from his second. I did give Jones the 2 votes. Even in saying that, I thought he was reasonably good at centre back, and then obviously had our only shot on target, so I was kind of like grasping at straws for votes for this one. And I went Panda for the 1 vote, which even with the save that led to the goal, I'm like, he had a couple of good saves to make, but this was a game. It was really a struggle to find 3 players to give votes for.
Yeah, for sure. And I will not be putting Kamara as 3. I had Gelhardt
nice.
as the 3. I think just factoring in the last couple of weeks, and I think there was always speculation around Leeds boy coming in, but he's really taken to his own, and I think he's been really great. I had Hughes as 2, and then Jones as 3.
Yeah, nice. Gelhardt and Kamara getting the 3 votes. It's Mitch's favourite player and your favourite player, so that was...
Yeah. I think Mitch is going to have some words with us after this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, we'll talk Plymouth now because that's the massive one tomorrow morning. You look at the table, and given the fact that Luton got the win against Portsmouth on the weekend, does start to heighten the pressure that as long as the sides below us weren't picking up points, the lack of results for us wasn't the end of the world. But it does feel like now, obviously, given the fact that Plymouth can go ahead of us, I think, if they beat us, there's a lot of pressure on this game. And it does feel like it's a precursor. It's the first in a series of these really tricky games. We've got Luton, we've got Derby, we've got a couple of other sides as well still to come in and around us on the table, and a few of those at home as well. So you think if we could get a convincing win against Plymouth, which I know is a massive, massive if, but if we could get like a 3-0 win against Plymouth, all of a sudden, A, the concerns start to ease on relegation, but B, you get a bit of confidence back into the side. But I think, look, going by recent trends, I think it's going to be a nervy 1-0 win either way, or a draw.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very nervy morning. But I think the point where Plymouth kind of turned for me was a 5-1 win against Millwall. And, they kind of stamped that, hey, no, we're turning things around. So I think that was a big win. I think you mentioned, the 3-1 loss to City is not awful. And draws with Cardiff and Plymouth, drawing with Cardiff, a team that we couldn't beat. I don't know what this one looks like. I think we win, but that's dependent on whether Hardy's playing for Plymouth or not.
I think he's out, and I think
Randell for the last 3 games, so I'm thinking he's not. So we'll see, because he's been pretty good this season. I'm feeling it. I don't think we keep the clean sheet, but I'm thinking like a 3-1 or a 3-2.
Yeah, I think the way, like what you said at the start about the fact that any of these games that we're expected to win, we don't win. I'm wondering if we're now at a point where with this sort of game, I'm not expecting us to win. So does that mean we will win?
I'm not. I can't say that. I'm the worst person to say that.
And actually, to be fair, you're a massive jinx. So getting you on this episode, I don't know if that's going to
It means we beat Bristol though.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We can reverse the results. Well, I guess that's a good question, actually. Would you take 3 points from these 2 games regardless of which order it's in? Or is it more we have to beat Plymouth and then whatever happens against Bristol is a bit less relevant?
No, I think we need to pick up points against Plymouth. And then I think we need points with Bristol.
Would you take 4 points if it was a draw against Plymouth?
No, because I think come the end of the season, the games against teams in the bottom 5 or 6 is what's really going to be crucial for us. If they keep picking up points and then we can't create distance, then it doesn't really matter. So if we beat Bristol and then if we draw with Plymouth and then we go on to beat Bristol, but then Plymouth also go on to beat whoever they're playing, I would rather have taken the gap against Plymouth.
Yeah, it's a good point. I'll bring up the table and the fixture just because it probably does bear actually having a look at.
We're 3 ahead of Plymouth.
Yeah.
At the moment, and then
so they can't go ahead of us.
Sheffield Wednesday.
Yeah. So they've got Sheff Wednesday, Derby have Blackburn, and Luton have Burnley. So really, I mean, not putting too much pressure on this Plymouth game, but you think if we win that, there's a reasonable likelihood that the 3 teams below us then lose on the weekend. Because sorry, who did we say?
I've stopped thinking that way.
Yeah.
I think we've got to take it game by game.
Yeah. I guess in that sense, then, in terms of the lineup for this one, it's interesting that Alzate came out against Cardiff. Like, it sounds like he was injured, so that it wasn't necessarily a strategic decision, but he was fit enough to come on for 30. Sounds like Casey Palmer's fit enough for the bench for this one. I'm curious to see, like, do we go completely full? Like, is it Pedro up top? Is it I guess for the midfield, you're almost thinking, is it sort of Puerta, Crooks, and Alzate? I guess is probably the strongest middle.
I replace Crooks with Slater.
Yeah, well, because I think Crooks is. I think he's in doubt with like a facial injury he's gotten at training, and I was like,
I don't know, but if I were to pick between them, I just think it depends on the game. If there are games where we know we've got time in the midfield and we can settle, then I put Crooks, but he's just too slow. And I don't think he puts enough pressure on, whereas Slater, is going to run himself into the ground.
It's interesting because I guess Crooks scored pretty early against Stoke as well, didn't he? Because he scored in the first 5 against Sheffield United. Yeah. I'm almost like, is he better as an impact player? Like you bring him on at 60 minutes or something when you can kind of just cause a bit of chaos and just throw him in the mix rather than...
Yeah, I almost feel Kamara is that player.
To throw on late.
Yeah, mainly because I got nothing against him. I want to make this clear for anyone listening. I got nothing against him. I just think he gives off Philogene vibes without being as good.
It's the Ebioi.
It's the nonchalant.
Yeah.
Like almost as if he isn't trying. But when he came on, last game, he ran circles around defenders because he had the energy to do that. I really like Lincoln and Gelhardt on the wings.
Would you start them?
I'd start them and then I'd take Lincoln off for Kamara, like we did the last game. I guess the big change I'm looking at would just be I'd replace Crooks and Matazo
With Slater
with
and
either. Well, Slater started, but I would do
sorry, right.
and
No, I think Slater came on for
no, he started.
Oh, sorry. No, sorry. You're right. Puerta came on for Matazo. Yeah.
I would replace Crooks with Pedro and then put Pedro and Joseph up front together.
Well, I think a lot of people have been hoping to say that. It's interesting that we play because everyone kind of thinks, well, we're not doing it because we don't play two strikers, but we have been playing Crooks more as a second striker, like he did.
We did last game, which is probably because he isn't fast enough.
Yeah, but then so then there's no reason we shouldn't do. The only thing I can think is, does he not want to put both strikers on from the start because then you don't have a natural striker? But I don't know.
You got Amrabat on the bench. Like you got, there are players.
Yeah, and also I just wonder, are they too similar? Because they're both sort of that, hold. I don't know. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're okay. Yeah, it'd be interesting. May as well
bring
give it
back
a go.
Carlos Fleming and then put him up front.
Yeah, it seems like it's a sort of season where you don't want to be kind of going down wondering. Like you want to be trying everything to get a result.
Yeah,
you don't
and we're at the point where we have to do that. I mean, we beat Sunderland, we drew with Norwich, but like losing to Burnley, Stoke, QPR, like those are games like minus the Burnley one, but Stoke and QPR we should have got results.
Yeah,
and I just think we're running out of time.
Yeah. Well, it is a tricky one because Luton getting that result against Portsmouth does change things, because before then you're thinking we're running out of time, but in a good way, because it's running out of time for the teams below us to pick up points. But it's, as you get that smaller and smaller sample size of games left, all they need to do is win like 2 or 3 games and then we're running out of time. So we do need to get a couple of wins on the board, get above like a Stoke and a Cardiff to kind of get that buffer. I think Stoke are really the ones in danger. If we can get a couple of results together and anyone in the bottom 3 picks up, I actually think Stoke are the ones most in danger because they're really just not reacting to the Robbins appointment at all. So it's not as if there's no other team. It's not like it's one of 4 stays up. Like it's not like we're 20th and then it's not as if we're 21st and then there's like 3 teams below us. It's like Stoke, Cardiff and so on are still very much in that relegation picture. So even Oxford aren't really clear. Like they haven't won in ages. So
no one. I wouldn't say anyone is really clear in the bottom 6.
Well, I didn't even realize. So for Portsmouth, I think Hayden Matthews, of course, our Sydney FC friend, who went and signed for them, I think he's out for the season, and I think one of their other centre backs is also out for the season. So even though they're sitting there on 39 points, if they're just suddenly starting to fall like a stone, there's a lot of teams that could potentially still get sucked into it. So definitely a lot to play out. Predictions for these games then. So for Plymouth, first of all, I think were you saying you're backing us for a narrow win?
Yes, 3-2.
3-2 goals. I like it. And then for Bristol City, I think this game very much feels like an afterthought at this stage. Like you said, it's very much one game at a time. I'd like to think away from home, red and white striped team, we've done reasonably well against those this season. And it seems the sort of game that we could unexpectedly win. And for me, I'm just like any points anywhere is a good thing. So I could see us getting like a 1 or a 2-0 win against them potentially.
Yeah. I don't know about Bristol. I'm going to go 1-1.
Scott Twine free kick potentially?
Nah, 1-1. Scott Twine can piss off. 1-1.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, look, we did try to keep this one reasonably short. We do know, obviously, people in the UK listening to this, Plymouth game is tonight. It's tomorrow morning over here in Australia. So I wanted to keep this nice and short so everyone gets the chance to listen to it before the game. It's the big one in this week. But we will be back next week to talk Plymouth result and Bristol City result. Hopefully both positive results to pull us further away from that bottom 3. But until then, thank you for joining me, Mike.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. And thank you everyone for listening in. Until next week, Come on, City.